Have you ever been disrespected by someone you thought cared about you? Maybe they've made hurtful comments, belittled your choices, or even made you question your worth. You're not alone. Many of us face moments where others fail to treat us with the respect we deserve. But what if I told you that you have the power to change how people treat you? And it starts with how you treat yourself. In today's video, we're diving deep into the transformative power of self-respect. By the end of this video, you'll understand why setting boundaries, holding your head high, and teaching others how to treat you isn't just important. It's essential for living a life of dignity and peace. Whether you're struggling with toxic relationships or simply want to strengthen your self-worth, the strategies we're covering today will help you reclaim your power and protect your energy. I'll share practical steps to stop people from making you feel small, how to cultivate an inner confidence that radiates self-respect, and why it's never selfish to distance yourself from those who drain you. You'll leave this video knowing exactly how to walk through life with the quiet strength that comes from truly honoring yourself. This isn't just about managing disrespect, it's about living authentically, unapologetically, and with unwavering dignity. Stay with me until the end, and you'll find that the respect you've been searching for starts within you. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. 1. Embrace the silent stare. There is an undeniable and quiet power in silence, a kind of strength that transcends the limitations of language. Silence isn't merely the absence of sound, it's a force in and of itself. There are moments in life when words are insufficient, when they don't capture the full depth of what needs to be communicated. In those moments, silence becomes your most powerful ally. The silent stare, in particular, is a kind of silent statement that speaks volumes, conveying emotions and messages that words alone could never capture. It's an act of unshakable self-respect, a quiet declaration that says, "I see you, I hear you, but your words do not define me." When faced with disrespect, the instinct is often to react. We feel a surge of defensiveness, a desire to push back, to explain ourselves, or to demand acknowledgement. We want to stand up for our dignity and show others that we won't tolerate being belittled or dismissed. But what if, in those crucial moments, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to argue or to explain but simply to stay silent and let your gaze speak for you? What if, by refusing to respond with words, you take away the power of the situation entirely? Silence can indeed be uncomfortable. It can be unsettling, especially when others are used to the dynamic of conversation and confrontation. But there's a remarkable transformation that occurs when you choose to embrace that silence with intention. When you meet someone's rude comment or dismissive behavior with nothing but a calm, steady stare, you communicate an undeniable message. You are not threatened by their words. You are not moved by their attempts to provoke you. You are grounded in your sense of worth, and you will not allow their negativity to shake you. Your silent presence becomes an act of profound strength. The power of the silent stare isn't about intimidation. It's not about making the other person feel small or weak. It's about making them aware of their behavior and forcing them to confront the consequences of their actions. When you meet their eyes with unwavering composure, you turn the spotlight on them without saying a word. They're no longer the ones holding the power in the conversation. You are. In that moment, your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the truth of their behavior. And for most people, that is a powerful, uncomfortable experience. They've come to expect reactions, anger, frustration, defensiveness, emotions they can feed off of. But when you give them nothing, when you don't indulge their need to stir you up, you leave them with nothing to hold on to but their actions. I will never forget the first time I fully understood the raw power of the silent stare. It was during a family dinner, a gathering of voices, opinions, and uninvited judgments. The conversation swirled around the table like a storm, loud and unapologetic, with people stepping over one another, each trying to assert their dominance in the conversation. I was sitting there, quietly absorbing everything being said, feeling the sting of certain comments, but knowing that any attempt to defend myself would only feed the fire. For a moment, I felt that familiar tension rising in me, the desire to explain, to correct, to stand my ground, and to make myself heard. I wanted to argue, to demand respect, to show them that I wouldn't let them walk over me. But then something shifted inside me. Instead of speaking, instead of reacting, I took a deep breath and decided to simply observe. I stopped, put my fork down gently, and allowed my eyes to meet theirs. I didn't say a word. I just looked at them, calm and steady, without flinching. I did not attempt to control the situation, but I also didn't allow their behavior to control me. It was a quiet, almost meditative moment, and yet it was one of the most powerful things I've ever done. What happened next took me completely by surprise. The noise in the room faded. The tension in the air thickened, but it wasn't directed at me. Their smirks faltered, and the smugness that had been so present moments before began to slip away. They couldn't handle the silence. They were used to the reactions they provoked, the anger or defensiveness that would follow their rude or dismissive comments. But now, they had nothing to feed off of. They were faced with the uncomfortable truth of their behavior. And without a word from me, they saw themselves for what they were. People who had crossed a line and been called out not with anger, but with presence. I hadn't said a thing, but in that one moment, they felt the weight of my dignity and self-respect, and they knew they'd gone too far. The silent stare is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending that what they said didn't hurt. It's not about glossing over the pain of being disrespected. It's about choosing where to place your energy. It's about making the conscious decision to refuse to invest in someone else's negativity. It's about not allowing someone else's inability to show respect to diminish your sense of self-worth. It's a conscious act of reclaiming control, not just over the situation, but over your emotions, over your response to the world around you. And while the silent stare may not always lead to instant resolution, it is an act of deep wisdom. It's not about proving a point or winning an argument. It's not about changing the other person's mind, because sometimes that's not possible. It's about showing up fully as yourself, strong, composed, and unapologetically unbothered. It's about saying, I know who I am, and I don't need to explain it to anyone. It's about understanding that the only opinion that truly matters is your own, and you don't need anyone else's validation to feel whole. So, the next time you find yourself on the receiving end of someone's disrespect, don't be quick to respond. Don't feel the need to justify yourself. Instead, take a moment. Close your eyes, center yourself, and then meet their gaze with quiet confidence. Let the silence fill the space between you. In that silence, there is a power far greater than any words could ever convey. You'll be amazed at how much it can shift the dynamics, and how much it can strengthen your sense of self. You might not hear it, but in that moment, your silence is speaking louder than any words ever could. It's telling them and reminding you that you are in control, and you won't be moved by the negativity of others. You'll be surprised at how much more empowered you'll feel afterward, how much more at peace you'll be with yourself, and how much deeper your sense of inner strength becomes when you've learned to embrace the silence. 2. Embrace silence as your answer. Silence is often deeply misunderstood. Too often, it's seen as passive, as though choosing not to respond is somehow a sign of weakness or defeat. People might think you're retreating, giving up, or backing down. But in truth, silence is one of the most powerful forms of response you can offer, especially when faced with disrespect. It is not the absence of action. Rather, it is a deliberate and calculated choice, a choice to withhold your precious energy from a situation that doesn't deserve it. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. When you choose silence, you take control. It forces the other person to sit with the weight of their words, to confront the discomfort of knowing that their negativity hasn't shaken you. In many cases, that silence cuts deeper than any sharp retort or heated response ever could. There is an undeniable beauty in allowing silence to speak for you. It becomes a profound statement in itself. I won't dignify this with a response. It is a message to the other person that their words don't carry enough weight to disturb your peace or to make you falter from your sense of self-worth. Silence, when wielded with intention, becomes a shield, a protective layer that surrounds you and shields you from the chaos of unnecessary conflict. It's not a retreat. It's a powerful assertion of your boundaries. It says, I know my worth, and I refuse to lower myself to this level. For you, it is an act of self-respect, a confirmation that you don't need to defend yourself, explain your feelings, or justify your position to be valid. Your peace, your dignity, and your sense of self are not for sale, and it is not up for debate. I can't help but think back to a moment not too long ago when I was standing in line at a pharmacy. A younger person behind me, clearly impatient, muttered something under their breath, loud enough for me to hear. In past years, I might have turned around and fired back a sharp remark, feeling the urge to stand up for myself, to show them that I wasn't someone to be disrespected. But this time, I chose silence. I didn't react. I stood there, my gaze fixed straight ahead, shoulders squared, my inner calm radiating like an unspoken force. The silence between their words and my refusal to engage became palpable. It was heavy, almost suffocating, and the discomfort in the air was undeniable. After a few moments, the young person fell silent, shifted uncomfortably, and ultimately stopped speaking altogether. I could feel the power in that moment, not because I had won anything, but because I had refused to let their negativity or impatience chip away at my peace. Choosing silence is an act of self-preservation. It is a reclamation of your energy. It is you deciding that not every word spoken to you requires a response. Not every slight or criticism is worthy of your attention, and not every battle is one you need to fight. But please don't mistake this for weakness. It is not a sign that you are afraid to stand up for yourself. It's the opposite. It's a quiet strength, a deep, unwavering sense of assurance that you don't need to engage with negativity to prove your worth. By embracing silence, you safeguard your dignity, your time, and your peace. And those things, your peace, your time, your self-respect, are far too precious to be squandered on needless arguments or petty disagreements. Silence, in its purest form, is a treasure, and when you choose it, you protect the most sacred parts of who you are. 3. Stop explaining your choices. One of the most draining and soul-crushing habits we can fall into, especially as we age, is the constant need to explain ourselves. It's as if, every time we make a choice, we feel the overwhelming compulsion to justify it, as if our decisions are somehow incomplete unless they receive the stamp of approval from others. The harsh truth that becomes so painfully clear with time is that you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you choose to live your life. Not a single one. Your life is yours, and no one else gets to define its course or its worth. When you make a decision, no matter how small or monumental, there will always be those who push back, who question, who prod for an explanation. Whether it's declining an invitation to a gathering, choosing a path less traveled, or even deciding to let go of something you once held dear, expect people to ask why. Why this? Why that? They'll demand reasons and details, or even push back with doubts. And here's the catch. Most of the time, their curiosity isn't genuine. It's a masked form of judgment, a subtle attempt to chip away at your confidence or to make you doubt your sense of self. I get it. It's easy to feel like we need to explain, like we owe the world our reasoning. There's a deep, almost primal urge to be understood, to have others see things the way we see them. But, in reality, their understanding doesn't matter. Their approval isn't needed for your decisions to be valid. There's an immense freedom that comes from embracing the fact that your choices are your own, and they stand on their merit, simply because you made them. It's a freedom that, once tasted, will feel like a weight lifted from your soul, a weight you never realized you'd been carrying. I learned this lesson painfully when I decided to stop hosting large family gatherings. For years, I had been the one who pulled everyone together, despite how exhausting it became, both physically and emotionally. It was expected of me, or so I thought. I carried that burden like it was my responsibility to keep the family tradition alive. But there came a point when it became too much. I was drained, empty. I needed to take a step back and care for myself, and that meant letting go of the obligation. The moment I decided this was the right choice for me, the questions started flooding in. Why are you stopping? Don't you love the family being together? It's tradition. At first, I fell into the trap of over-explaining. I offered reasons, trying to make them understand, trying to convince them that this was about my health, about self-care, about putting myself first for once. But no matter how much I explained, it was never enough. It felt like the more I said, the more they demanded, as if I had to constantly prove my decisions were justified. And then, one day, after yet another question, I stopped. I looked them in the eye and simply said, "Because this works for me now." And that was it. No more reasons, no more justification, just the truth. The relief I felt was indescribable. It wasn't just the lightness of not having to explain myself any longer. It was the quiet strength in knowing that I didn't need to. My choices were valid, and I didn't owe anyone a long-winded explanation for them. By choosing not to over-explain, I was affirming my worth. I was showing that my decisions were enough. I didn't need anyone else's approval to live my truth. The next time someone questions your decisions, remember this. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Give a simple, confident response. Because I want to. Because it's what feels right for me. And then, leave it at that. Let the silence fill the space. Let them process. The truth is, most people won't know how to respond to such certainty. And you'll feel a renewed sense of inner strength, a sense of peace in standing firm, unapologetically, in your choices. At this stage of life, we've earned the right to live authentically, to make decisions based on what we need, what we value, what serves us. We don't need anyone else's permission. And that, my friends, is the ultimate freedom. 4. Keep your distance. Sometimes, the most profound way to deal with people who don't respect you isn't through harsh words or bold actions, but by creating a space between you and them. Distance is one of the most powerful tools you have, not just to protect yourself, but to protect your peace, your energy, and your emotional well-being. It's not about being cold-hearted or shutting people out of your life completely. It's about learning to set healthy boundaries and reclaiming the space you deserve. Because let's be honest, not everyone deserves a place in your inner circle. You have the right to be selective about who you allow to share in your life, and it's perfectly okay to put yourself first. As we grow older, our time and energy become more precious than gold. We've spent decades learning lessons, enduring trials, and navigating relationships, discovering, sometimes painfully, what works and what doesn't. By this point in life, it becomes painfully clear that not everyone, no matter how long we've known them, has earned the privilege of our presence. Some people, no matter their status as friends, family members, or acquaintances, seem to drain us more than they uplift us. Maybe it's that friend who can't seem to say a kind word without following it with a sharp critique. Maybe it's the family member who always dismisses your opinions, as though your thoughts and feelings don't matter. Or maybe it's that neighbor who constantly oversteps your boundaries, as though your personal space is theirs to invade at will. But here's the truth. You don't have to endure disrespect just to avoid conflict or keep the peace. This is a lesson that we often learn too late, but it's one of the most liberating realizations. You don't owe anyone your time or energy, especially if they consistently leave you feeling drained or unappreciated. Distance doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to involve yelling, confrontation, or burning bridges. Although, yes, sometimes that's necessary. More often than not, It's as simple as quietly stepping back. It can be as easy as not answering every call, politely declining invitations, or limiting the time you spend with people who never seem to bring anything but negativity into your life. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you're not as available as you once were. You're allowed to prioritize your happiness, health, and peace of mind over anyone else's need for your company. Because, let's face it, if someone truly cared about you, they wouldn't put you in a position where you feel disrespected or belittled. They wouldn't dismiss your feelings, make you question your worth, or make you feel like your needs don't matter. If they truly valued you, they would lift you, not drag you down. I can remember a time when I struggled with this. For years, I brushed it off, telling myself that they didn't mean any harm, that it was just the way they were. But after each interaction, I found myself feeling smaller, more diminished. Every conversation seemed to turn into a critique. They'd find something, anything, to criticize, whether it was my choices, my passions, my appearance, or even the way I chose to live my life. And every time I told myself, it's fine, they don't mean it. They're just being themselves. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being less than, of being dismissed and undervalued. One day, I realized I had had enough. I didn't need to confront them or make a big scene. I simply started pulling back, little by little. I stopped answering every call. I politely declined a few invitations. And little by little, the weight of their negativity began to lift from my shoulders. It wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about reclaiming my peace. And as I created distance, I found that I could finally breathe again. That space, that quiet distance, gave me clarity. It helped me see that their behavior wasn't truly about me. It was a reflection of their insecurities, their fears, and their inability to offer anything positive. And more importantly, it reminded me that I deserve better. I deserve relationships that nourish me, that support me, that inspire me to be the best version of myself. I deserve people who celebrate my victories, who respect my boundaries, and who encourage me to grow. Keeping your distance isn't selfish. It's an act of self-respect. It's a way of telling yourself, I matter. My peace matters. My happiness matters. It's a reminder that your life is too valuable, too precious, to be spent on people who never treat you with the kindness and consideration you deserve. So, if someone in your life constantly disrespects you, ask yourself, what am I truly gaining by staying close to them? If the answer is nothing, if all you're gaining is frustration, resentment, and emotional exhaustion, then maybe it's time to step back. Distance can be a radical act of freedom. It creates room for positivity to enter your life, for relationships that bring joy and energy instead of stress and heartache. And most importantly, it serves as a constant reminder that your well-being comes first. You don't owe anyone your time or energy, especially if they've proven they will never treat you with the respect you deserve. So take that step back, and remember, you are worthy of the peace and happiness that distance brings. You deserve nothing less. 5. Hold your head high. There is a quiet, almost sacred power in walking through life with your head held high. It's more than just a physical posture, a simple act of standing tall or walking with confidence. Holding your head high is an embodiment of your self-worth, a quiet but undeniable assertion that you know who you are, that you understand the inherent value you carry, and that you will not let anyone, or anything, convince you otherwise. It is a way of honoring yourself, a deeply personal act of self-respect that you carry with you at every step. It becomes not just a habit, but a declaration of your dignity, something you wear with pride and grace. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Life, as we all know, is full of challenges, disappointments, and moments of vulnerability. At times, it can feel as though the world conspires to push you down, to make you doubt your value. People, whether intentionally or not, will often test your boundaries. They might disrespect you, belittle you, or try to diminish your sense of self-worth. And in those moments, The temptation to shrink into yourself, to feel small, to lose your sense of confidence, can be overwhelming. It's only human to want to retreat, to hide, or to let their words or actions pierce your spirit. But the true strength comes from the choice to resist that temptation and to hold your head high, no matter what. When you stand tall, when you lift your chin and square your shoulders, you remind yourself and the world that you are not defined by the negative forces around you. You are not a product of someone else's disrespect or their attempts to diminish you. No matter what they say, no matter how they behave, your sense of self is unshaken. Holding your head high isn't about arrogance or superiority. It's a quiet rebellion against the forces that seek to make you question your worth. It's a testament to the fact that you know exactly who you are, and no one else has the power to take that away from you. Disrespect is often born from insecurity. It comes from people who seek to feel more powerful by undermining those around them. They want to make you question your value, to make you shrink in self-doubt, to make you think that your voice, your presence, and your needs are somehow less important than theirs. They rely on their words and actions to chip away at your confidence, to make you falter and doubt yourself. It's a game of power, a cruel attempt to make you feel small so that they can feel big. But when you stand your ground, when you refuse to let their negativity seep into your soul, you are not just protecting yourself. You are sending a message to them and the world. You are showing them that you will not be swayed. You are reminding yourself that you have the right to exist fully and freely in this world, and you are worthy of respect, no matter who challenges you. This is the quiet but powerful resistance that comes from within, the refusal to let someone else's hurtful words or actions take root in your heart. You choose not to let them define you. Instead, you define yourself, and you do so with grace, with dignity, and with the unshakable knowledge of your worth. The beauty of holding your head high is that it doesn't require any words. You don't need to argue, to explain yourself, or to convince others of your worth. It's often better not to engage with negativity at all. Instead, by simply standing tall, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, you make a statement. Your confidence radiates from you in a way that words cannot capture. It's a quiet strength that speaks volumes. People see it, whether they acknowledge it or not. You do not need to shout to be heard. Your presence, your poise, and the way you carry yourself become the message. It's a form of communication that transcends language, a way of showing the world that you are secure in who you are and nothing, and no one can take that away. And there is something undeniably magnetic about that kind of confidence. When you walk into a room with your head held high, you immediately command attention. Not in a loud, demanding way, but in a way that draws people in because they sense something genuine about you. They sense the deep inner strength that comes from being comfortable with who you are, flaws and all. It's not arrogance. It's a quiet, unshakable belief that you have a right to take up space in this world. When you carry yourself with this kind of self-assurance, others can't help but notice, and they are drawn to it because, deep down, we all long for that kind of confidence. The kind that comes not from external validation, but from within. The more you practice this act of holding your head high, the less power other people's negativity will have over you. It becomes a protective shield, a self-imposed barrier that prevents the negativity of others from finding its way into your soul. When you refuse to shrink in the face of disrespect, you build a kind of emotional armor that shields your heart from being pierced by the words or actions of others. It's not about being impervious to hurt. It's about choosing not to let that hurt define you. Over time, this becomes a reflex. The more you stand tall, the less you are affected by the slings and arrows of life. This isn't just a tool for dealing with disrespect. It's a philosophy for how to live your life. Holding your head high is a daily act of self-respect. It's about walking through the world with the knowledge that you have inherent value, and that value is not up for debate. It's about refusing to shrink back in the face of adversity or judgment. It's about saying, I deserve to exist fully in this world, and I will not let anyone make me feel like I don't. Holding your head high becomes a constant reminder to yourself that you are worthy, you are enough, and you have the right to take up space, no matter your age, your appearance, or your past. And the most beautiful thing happens when you embody this practice. Others begin to mirror the respect you show yourself. The world starts to reflect to you the dignity, love, and self-worth that you carry within. People begin to treat you the way you treat yourself. You may be surprised at how others begin to see you, not as someone who is waiting for permission to exist, but as someone who commands respect, not because you demand it, but because you already give it to yourself. So, the next time someone tries to make you feel small, when someone's words attempt to wound you, resist the urge to stoop to their level. Don't engage in their game of diminishing others. Instead, take a moment to pause, breathe deeply, and then, with quiet defiance, lift your chin and stand tall. Remind yourself in that moment, I am more than their words. I am enough. In that moment, you will feel a surge of power, not because of what you've said or done, but because you have remembered who you are. Your strength will return to you, not from external circumstances, but from the deep, unwavering belief in your worth. You'll walk away from that moment with a renewed sense of purpose and self-respect, and nothing, no one, can take that from you. 6. Teach people how to treat you. Teaching people how to treat you is one of the most powerful, transformative, and often misunderstood acts of self-respect you can ever undertake. It's not about demanding people bow down to you or forcing them to see your worth in a way that feels forced or insincere. No, it's about consistently, calmly, and with an inner strength that comes from a place of deep self-love, showing people where your boundaries are, where your limits lie, and what you are and are not willing to tolerate. Respect is not something that is always given freely. It is often taken for granted or expected, and when it is not offered, it's so easy to brush it aside, tell yourself it's not a big deal, or convince yourself that you're just being overly sensitive. But the truth is that respect is earned, and sometimes it must be actively taught. This isn't a lesson that is learned overnight. It's not about reacting to a single incident, but rather about taking ownership of how you are treated over time and drawing a clear line in the sand that others must learn to respect. This process of teaching others how to treat you is about making sure your inner worth and dignity are reflected in your outer interactions. It's about showing people, in a quiet yet profound way, that your time, energy, and emotional space are valuable, and that they should be treated with the same care and consideration that you extend to others. When you begin to teach people how to treat you, you are, in essence, holding up a mirror to your own heart, reminding yourself of your worth, and demonstrating to the world that you will no longer tolerate behavior that diminishes you or makes you feel small. But there's a deep emotional complexity in this process that cannot be ignored. It's easy to get caught in the temptation to excuse or rationalize others' disrespectful behavior. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they were having a rough day. Or maybe, like me at times, you justify it by telling yourself that you're just being too sensitive. Compassion and empathy are important, of course. We all have bad days, and we all have moments when we might inadvertently hurt someone else. But the line is crossed when disrespect becomes a pattern. And when you let that pattern go unchecked, you are not only allowing others to treat you poorly, you are telling them, through your silence, that their behavior is acceptable. The emotional weight of this realization is not easy to carry. It's a stark awakening when you finally understand that you've been silently tolerating behavior that hurts you. I remember a time when I learned this lesson the hard way. I had a neighbor who would show up at my door, unannounced, without fail. The visits, while well-meaning, often disrupted my day. They might only last for a few minutes, but they would leave me feeling drained, and my time disrespected, as though my personal life and space were secondary to their need for social interaction. At first, I didn't say anything. I didn't want to seem rude. I didn't want to cause tension. So, I brushed it off, convincing myself it was harmless, that it was just a neighborly gesture, and that I was being overly sensitive to small things. But deep down, I felt the weight of it, slowly building up. The more it happened, the more I realized that my silence, my unwillingness to speak up, was teaching my neighbor that their behavior was acceptable. It was as though I was sending a signal that it was okay for them to disregard my time, my energy, and my need for space. And that's when it hit me, By not saying anything, I was allowing this disrespect to continue. I felt a rising sense of frustration and resentment that I could no longer ignore. And at that point, I knew I had to do something. I will never forget the moment when I finally stood up for myself. I had been stewing over it for days, and one afternoon, as my neighbor knocked on my door, I felt a surge of determination. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and calmly, but firmly, said, "I truly enjoy our conversations, and I value our friendship. But I would appreciate it if you could call ahead next time to make sure it's a good time for me. That way, we can both enjoy our chats without disrupting the flow of my day." It was such a small request, but it changed everything. It wasn't about being rude or dismissive. It was about drawing a line and teaching them how to treat me. And do you know what? They respected it. From that moment on, the dynamic shifted. The visits became more deliberate, more planned, and far more enjoyable because I had shown them, in a gentle but unambiguous way, that I valued my time and that I expected them to respect it. Teaching others how to treat you is an ongoing process. It's not something that happens once and is then forgotten. It requires patience, consistency, and the courage to speak up whenever you feel that your boundaries are being crossed. But the rewards of this practice are immense. When you stand firm in your boundaries, when you refuse to accept anything less than respect, you will find that people start to treat you the way you have shown them you deserve to be treated. Not through force, but through the quiet, unwavering strength of your example. But perhaps the greatest reward is what it does for your sense of self-worth. When you begin to set clear expectations about how you expect to be treated, you are, in effect, telling the world, and yourself, that you believe you are worthy of kindness, consideration, and care. You are reinforcing the message that you will not accept anything less than the respect you so freely give to others. And when you continue to uphold those boundaries, you begin to build a life that is centered on your values, your own needs, and your well-being. It's not just about making others respect you. It's about showing yourself that you are deserving of respect in the first place. The emotional power of teaching people how to treat you lies in its ripple effect. It affects every relationship you have, and it helps you reclaim your power in ways you may not even realize. When you learn to say no to disrespect, dishonesty, or do anything that diminishes your sense of self-worth, you also send a message to your inner self. I am worthy. I am enough. And that, my friend, is the kind of power that can change everything. Not just in how others treat you, but in how you see yourself, in how you feel about your existence, and in the unshakable belief that you deserve the best this life has to offer. So, the next time someone crosses your boundaries, don't shrink back. Don't allow the weight of unspoken words to fester inside of you. Stand tall, speak your truth, and teach them, gently but firmly, how to treat you. Because in doing so, you will not only change the way they see you, you will change the way you see yourself. And that, in the end, is the greatest gift you can give yourself. 7. Remember, respect starts with you. At the core of every meaningful interaction, every boundary we set, and every moment of self-advocacy, there is a simple yet profound truth that can often be overlooked in the chaos of daily life. Respect starts with you. It's so easy to direct our frustration at others, to blame them when they treat us poorly or fail to show us the kindness, understanding, or dignity we deserve. It's almost second nature to look outward, seeking validation and respect from the people around us, hoping that others will see our worth and treat us accordingly. But what if the key to changing how we're treated lies not in changing others, but in transforming how we treat ourselves? The real, deep, and lasting change begins with us. It starts within our hearts and minds, in the quiet spaces where we come to terms with who we are and what we truly deserve. It begins when we decide to honor ourselves, not as an act of selfishness, but as a way of acknowledging that we are worthy of the same care, love, and respect that we so often extend to others. When you learn to respect yourself, truly, unapologetically, and wholeheartedly, it changes everything. It alters the very energy you bring into every room, every conversation, and every interaction. Self-respect isn't just about demanding better from the people around you. though it certainly plays a role in that. It's about living in a way that reflects your belief in your worth. It's about showing up for yourself, treating yourself with the same compassion and understanding you would show to a dear friend, and permitting yourself to take up space in this world. Think about it for a moment. How often do we neglect ourselves in favor of others? How many times have we pushed our own needs aside, putting other people's expectations ahead of our peace and happiness, because we feared being selfish or disappointing someone? I know I've been guilty of it. I remember countless times when I agreed to things I didn't want to do, attending events I had no interest in, agreeing to help with tasks that drained me, all because I didn't want to let anyone down. I lived in constant fear of disappointing others or appearing selfish, but with each yes that didn't reflect my true feelings, I was slowly chipping away at my self-respect. It was like I was slowly dimming my light to keep everyone else happy. It wasn't until I started tuning in to my inner voice, the one that whispered, "You matter too," that things began to shift. At first, it was a scary concept. In a world that tells us to prioritize the needs of others, learning to say no felt almost radical. But with each moment of self-respect, I felt a little more grounded, a little more aligned with my truth. I began to realize that honoring myself wasn't an act of rebellion, it was an act of love. And when I started practicing self-respect, I began to see the world around me shift in ways I couldn't have imagined. When you respect yourself, it sends a clear and undeniable message to the people around you. You will no longer accept treatment that diminishes you. You will no longer tolerate relationships that drain you or compromise your well-being. You'll set clear boundaries and communicate your needs with confidence and clarity. The more you practice this, the more others begin to mirror the respect you show yourself. People start to treat you with the same level of dignity and care that you treat yourself. It's almost as though you set a standard by which they must operate. And those who don't respect that, they start to fade away. They simply can't exist in the presence of someone who knows their worth. They'll move on to someone else who hasn't yet discovered their value. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. But it's important to remember that self-respect doesn't mean perfection. It's not about being flawless or having all the answers. It's about embracing your humanity. The fact that you're allowed to make mistakes, to falter, to learn, and to grow. It's about treating yourself with kindness and understanding when you stumble, rather than punishing yourself with shame. Self-respect is about celebrating your successes, no matter how small they seem, while also forgiving yourself when things don't go as planned. It's about acknowledging that your value isn't tied to what you do for others or how much you accomplish. Your worth is intrinsic, embedded in who you are at your very core. When you truly embrace the idea that respect starts with you, the changes that follow are profound. You begin to make decisions that are aligned with your values and needs, even when those decisions are hard. You become less swayed by the opinions of others, less concerned with pleasing everyone, and more focused on cultivating a life that feels true to yourself. The relationships you cultivate are healthier because they are built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. You're no longer afraid to set boundaries that protect your peace and your well-being, and you attract people who respect and honor those boundaries. As a result, the negativity that once felt suffocating, whether from toxic people, unrealistic expectations, or self-doubt, begins to lose its grip on you. You are no longer weighed down by the need to seek validation from others because you've already found it within yourself. Building this foundation of self-respect doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, one that requires patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to let go of old habits and beliefs that no longer serve you. But once you begin, it becomes easier and easier to honor yourself, to trust your instincts, and to act from a place of self-love rather than self-sacrifice. And over time, you will find that the respect you give yourself is reflected by you in ways you never thought possible. So, I urge you to take a moment today, right now even, to look inward. Ask yourself honestly, am I treating myself with the same love and respect that I wish others would treat me with? If the answer is no, that's okay. It's never too late to start. Begin with one small decision today that honors your worth. Maybe it's saying no to something that drains you, or taking a moment to simply breathe and reconnect with yourself. Then, take another step tomorrow, and another the next day. Over time, you'll notice that the more respect you show yourself, the more the world around you will begin to reflect that same respect. And soon, you will find that the foundation of self-respect you've built within yourself is unshakable. It will be the rock upon which you stand, no matter what life throws your way. As we've explored today, the journey to self-respect isn't just about expecting others to treat us well. It starts from within. It begins with recognizing our worth, honoring our boundaries, and choosing to live authentically. When we respect ourselves, we set the tone for how others will treat us, and we create a life that reflects our values and needs. So, what have you learned from today's discussion? What's one thing that resonated with you, and how can you start applying it in your own life right now? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Please take a moment to share one lesson you're taking away from this video, and how you plan to put it into practice. Your thoughts might just inspire someone else to take their step toward greater self-respect and empowerment. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content on living your best life at any age. Your support means the world, and together, we can continue creating a community of people who honor themselves and each other. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.